Awesome! So you guys understand the insane destructive capacity of criticism, the ridiculous importance of forgiving people and connecting with them, in the long term, focusing on the overarching growth of a relationship and thinking about the actual long-term benefits that come from it, rather than just thinking about the immediate short-term, bad thing happened, you get angry, versus, looking at it from a much higher point of view and thinking about the real connection that's at stake here and the actual future growth potential that you have in a relationship, which is so powerful. And so I kind of want to finish out chapter 1 and this first fundamental theory in handling people with a story that I think is just so powerful, and it's freaking sick. So it's been said so often that parents, let's go over to the computer, and parents they criticize their children a lot, and it's bogus, and I've experienced this firsthand. It just kind of sucks, right? And what Dale Carnegie he does here is he doesn't necessarily say not to do this, but instead he presents a story. And it's a story that's a total classic of American journalism called Father Forgets. And Father Forgets has been reprinted so many times. It's just ridiculously popular. And it's just had such a huge impact on so many people ever since it was published, years and years, probably freaking 100 plus years ago, which is insane. A century ago this came out, and it's had such a huge impact on so many people. It clicks, right? And because it clicks and it has the impact and it tells the story, it's just so powerful. And this is I don't know. It was just tough, it was a tough household I grew up in. I don't know if that's the way everyone was. And I'm sure it wasn't. For so many people, they had an awesome time. But yeah, well, you guys will talk. So, here we go. So there's this guy, okay? And he's looking at his son. Okay, and his son's in bed, his son's asleep, and he's probably 8 years old or something like that. And as he stands above his son, he's thinking. And just a minutes ago, he was reading his paper in the library, and a stifling wave of remorse swept over him. Where then he guiltily came by to his bedside. Well, why was he so remorseful? You see, over the past day, this kid, he got ready for school, and his father, he scolded him and he criticized him because he only really dabbed his face with a towel, and he was upset with him, and he yelled at him for not cleaning his shoes, and then he called out angrily when he threw some of his things on the floor. And there was just a whole lot of negativity, right? A whole lot of this bad stuff. And at breakfast, same thing, right? He found fault at breakfast. Son just trying to eat, trying to have fun. And yet, he's upset, right? And he's saying that he spilled things and that he gulped down his food and just criticizing little teeny itsy bits that don't really actually matter. And that he's putting his elbows on the table and he's spreading too much butter. And that he has just been gone off and just left, and he's just so upset at him. And as this kid leaves to go to school, right, he turns around and he says, "Goodbye, Daddy." And instead of connecting with him, right, and instead of being positive, being happy, he has this terrible personality. And he frowns and he says, "Hold your shoulders back." Like what the heck, right? So many people, they try to find fault in every single little thing, and that's exactly what goes on here with this kid and with his dad. And it's just awful, right? Because when you find fault and when you criticize, it doesn't do any good for anybody. It destroys the connection and the relationship, and it's awful, right? And since it's a kid, right, he doesn't really get that defensive. It's just such a mean thing. And then it started all over again in the afternoon, right? So in the afternoon, the kid comes home, and as he's walking down, his dad sees him and he's playing in the street with his stockings or whatever, and he runs over to him and his friends, and he is super pissed and yells at him about getting holes in his stockings, and embarrasses him in front of all of his friends, and it makes him feel sad and negative. It's just terrible. Telling him he should be more careful, from his father, right? It's just crushing his personality and his reputation. And again, this idea of public face, right? and face being like what people think about you or the perception that they have of you. He's just like crushing this for him by embarrassing him in front of his friends, and it sucks, right? And then later, he was sitting in the library and he was like reading something, and this kid comes in, and he's like super shy and super timid because for this entire day, like his dad has been like just destroying, and it's just awful, right? Breaking him down, making him feel terrible about himself. And so he comes to this library and timidly, with a sort of hurt look in his eyes, goes up to his dad, and his dad, he glances over his paper impatiently, and he says, "What do you want?" And this kid says absolutely nothing. He comes over, grabs him, gives him a huge hug, gives him a goodnight kiss, and then he goes to bed. And that's when, this guy, the paper in his hands just falls away, and he realizes that there was so much happiness and love and friendship in this kid's heart that not even neglect could wither his persistence and his desire to have a bond with his dad. Like, how powerful is that? Like, they just want to be together. That's all he wants. And he realizes that the habit of finding fault and of reprimanding him was just so destructive. Like, it was a terrible reward for him being just this little kid, right? And it wasn't that, like, he didn't, this guy, he totally loved his kid a ton, right? But he expected what? He expected too much of his youth. And he measured him by what? He measured him by the yardstick of his own years. And he was looking from his own eyes at what this kid should be doing and how he should be acting and how he should be dressing and the responsibilities he should have. And he had this huge expectation for him. There was like the expectation for like what a normal 50-year-old would do, right? But this kid's like 8. And so he's only like down here. And since he's down here because he's like freaking 8, like he can't really like, it's tough to do that, right? It's just not there yet. And he's trying to figure out too much, get so much out of this little teeny amount that is there. Because there is so much good and fine true in his character. His little heart is so big that he knows, like, this kid is in the right place. And he had the courage to come in and just freaking kiss his dad because he loves him, right? And he was able to look over the criticism. See, like, not everybody will be able to look over the criticism. Not everybody will be able to walk through a day with this negativity and be able to get over that. Most people, what do? They want to be in a positive environment, especially highly successful people. They want to be in a positive environment with people that support them, not that break them down, not that tear them down. And so, like, in the real world, very rarely will this happen, right? People just walk away. They run away from negativity, and they try to distance, like, always, I'm distancing myself from negative people. And so this is this very fortunate situation where, like, they can come together and they can resolve this problem together because they're father and son. And it's so powerful because he has this chance that's very few people have. And he comes together with them and sits at his bedtime, and he's ashamed, he's so sad, and he realizes that he needs to make a change, that tomorrow he will be happy. Tomorrow he will laugh when he laughs. He will suffer when his son suffers, and they will be happy together. And what's gonna happen if he wants to criticize somebody? The hardest thing that you can ever do, but it will have the biggest impact on your relationships and the connections you make with others, is your ability to sit there and just freaking be quiet. And even though he sees, his son might have like a little teeny problem or a little teeny issue, or maybe there's some small problem with like the work that he's doing or whatever, right? He's not going to worry about it. And he's just gonna freaking shut up. And it's so difficult to do this, right? Like when you're working on a group project and you know that somebody's made a mistake, but you understand that like criticism is terrible and you need to be positive. And you just have to sit there and let them figure it out on their own and let them solve the problem on their own and understand the mistake at their own pace so that the epiphany of the problem comes from their own mind, not from you, right? And it changes absolutely everything because he's just a little kid, right? And he can't like visualize him as this huge old man because he's just not there yet. And so as he goes on and as he realizes that he just needs to be with him, and he needs to just ask him to be himself and to do what he can do, he needs to understand him, right? You cannot condemn people. Condemning people will crush you. You need to understand them. And the instant that you can understand, you can relate, you can connect, and you can develop that social relationship at a degree so strong that none else can compare or get to that same level. It's so powerful, so powerful. You gotta figure out, why people do what they do. Like, what are the underlying motives for playing with friends, right? Or for whatever it is that he wants to change. Like, if you want to change somebody's behavior, the best way to do it is to ask why. You know, why are you doing that? And then understand the motives. That's what he needs to do, right? It's so much more powerful than criticism. And it creates what? It creates sympathy. It creates collaboration. Because you're talking, you're understanding, and you're destroying the negativity. You're creating tolerance. You're creating kindness. Because to know all is to forgive all. Can't judge somebody until the end of their days. And that's exactly what happens with this kid. Never, 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 never criticize, condemn, or complain. That's like the first huge lesson. It all stems from positivity. It all stems from giving ridiculous amounts of praise and completely avoiding anything that would go against that, such as criticism, condemnation, or complaints. Just never do it, man. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, you might feel awful. And I know it sucks, right? Like, you get bad service at a restaurant, or you get, you know, a terrible experience somewhere, and you want to criticize so badly, and you want to complain and just like, you know, beat somebody down because you know that they're wrong and that you're right. But you just can't do it. You just need to walk away from it. A great example, like when I was writing 9 to Noon, or when I'm making courses like this, like my dad, he's a little bit of like an employee mentality. And so, you know, he's like, you know, if you look at what you're getting paid on an hourly basis, you know, this doesn't make any sense. But like, I'm looking at it at a whole different realm. I'm looking at it as like an asset, right? So you write a book, that's an asset that will pay you for the rest of your life. You make a course like this, that's an asset that will pay you for the rest of your life. And so like, I'm thinking about everything that I'm doing as an asset that's gonna grow in value over time and create more significance and impact on others over time. And for him, like, he's thinking about it, you know, this employment attitude where like you're starting flat and it's only this linear slope. So you invest time and you invest time and you invest time and you get paid money, right? And it's this employee mentality versus this application mentality where you're getting stuff done. And at the beginning, right, it's this idea that like the longer you can go without pay, bigger and bigger your paycheck's gonna be in the end. I know so many guys that are absolutely crushing it. I mean, like, just exploding online and with YouTube marketing and just so many amazing opportunities out there. And it's really, like, just phenomenal. See, stock trading is a little bit different because, like, you make money really quickly with stock trading, which is pretty sick. And so it's not as long of a wait of like, you know, time invested. Like, once you get the education, you can just freaking do it. And then it's just 2 or 3 hours, like, or even an hour a day. I mean, it's pretty sick. And so, like, I'm, like, super against this idea and this mentality that he has. But, like, I'm not going to criticize him, right? It just doesn't, it's not worth it. It's not an argument with arguing. Because, like, remember this idea of experiences, right? If somebody has the exact same experiences as you, they're gonna go through the life the same way that you will. But we have totally different experiences. This kid and his father have totally different experiences. And so, like, they can't expect each other to be the same or to have the same understanding of their actions or the justifications of what they do. My brother is the coolest guy ever, but he has totally different experiences than me. So there's like no way that he's gonna be the same as me, right? Same thing with like everyone I know. They all have different experience. I'm gonna finish this off on a kind of a really powerful story, and I think it'll, you know, it sort of was a big paradigm shift for me, and it had a huge impact. You know, there's this movie like Joker, right? And in the movie, you know, it's the story of Joker, and you know, he starts off just like distraught and destroyed. He's like this clown, right? But he's getting like literally like beat up by people on the middle of the road, like in the street. People are just coming and like beating him up, and he's just destroying him, right? It's awful. And as he gets beat up over and over again, eventually he gets to the point where like one of his clown buddies like gives him a gun just to like protect himself. And he goes and does a show, and this gun, like, he's dancing around in a hospital, and the gun kind of like falls out of his pocket, and he gets fired because he brought a gun to a hospital. So that's kind of a bad thing to do. And he gets fired, he goes home on the train, and as he goes home on the train, these guys come up to him on the train and just start beating him up. Because he's laughing at them. He has this like medical condition where he just can't stop laughing. And his whole life, all he wanted to do was be a comedian. All he wanted to do was be a clown. All he wanted to do was make people laugh. And these guys come up to him and they just freaking like beat him up. They kick him on the ground and they're just trying to beat him. It's terrible, right? And so he pulls out this gun and shoots. He's so terrible. Because like the whole world around him, right, has just tried to kill him and beat him up over and over again. And it's taken everything that he has. You know, he's living with his mom. He has nothing. So he shoots these guys on the train. And then he moves throughout the city, and everyone's talking about this guy who shot these guys on the train. And he just comes out and he realizes like this is the only feeling of significance, of importance that he's ever had in all of his time. And as he moves on throughout his life, he gets on this like so many different routes, and he learns that like, you know, his parents were adopted him, and that he had like been abused as a kid, and all this stuff he didn't remember, and like his childhood was so like messed up, right? Like his mom's like ex or whatever came and was like crushing him, and the people he worked for, they all crushed him, right? And his mother like lied to him, betrayed him, and he had this terrible background in history. He came to a decision, right? He came to a turning point. And there's two things you can do at this turning point, and I want to share with you both of them, and then I want like you to take the right decision. So the first option is you can take a moment and you can reflect, and you can look at all of the things you've done. You can look at your whole past, look at everything that's happened in your life, and say, is that what I want for my future, right? Or do I want something else? Do I want to change? Do I want to grow? Do I want to have huge, massive impact and success? Or do I want to stay like this? And you just spend a little bit of time reflecting and then creating plans to get to like wherever that goal is, right? And so that's kind of why like I teach like Think and Grow. I teach like that course on Think and Grow Rich, and there's the book, you know, Think and Grow Rich. Like it's this idea of like having a long-term goal. And when you have this long-term goal, Think or Grow Rich, everything changes, right? Because you can see where you want to be in like 5-10 years. And so for this guy, right, he didn't really have any long-term goals. And so because he didn't have any long-term goals, he went with the second option. And the second option is to go past this wall, the exact same person you were before, make a decision to take what was here and escalate it to a whole nother level and make it significantly higher. Like just do it more and more. So to a much more extreme extent. And so like he goes on this TV show and like does a little skit as a Joker with all his makeup and stuff on, and then he like shoots the host like live on air. And it's awful, right? And it inspires like huge riots in the whole city, and everyone explodes, and there's tons of violence and fighting and destruction, and it's awful. Why? Because he made the decision to stick with his past, and he made the decision to do this terribly evil thing instead of like taking a step back and looking at like how he could make his future positive instead of negative. He literally walked into a therapist and told them that every single thought he has is negative. And so that negativity manifested itself into an entire riot across the whole city, and the murder of like tons, and he killed like probably 6, 7, 8 people, I don't know, in the movie. And so you want to make sure that like you don't have that. You want to focus on positivity and do the exact opposite of what this guy does. Like he turns into a supervillain, right? So imagine if instead of having all negativity, you had all positivity, what would happen? You turn into a superhero, right? And so it's like the exact path you need to take, right? You should follow these long-term goals, and you understand the power of them, and they draw you towards this insanely greater future, and then you take the right steps to get there. No matter what your past was, it does not matter what your past was, because all you have to do is do the right things right now, because that's the only time that matters, and that's the only time you can control is what you're doing right now. And it absolutely changes everything the instant that you understand this concept. It is so powerful. And so I hope you guys understand this, and I hope you guys kind of connect with the story of the kid and his dad, and a father forgets, because like the instant that you can get rid of negativity, because negativity is evil is negativity. If you get rid of that, you can just like never criticize people again, never make them be defensive again, never, you know, destroy those relationships with criticism. It's just gonna be like a bajillion times easier to have those connections with people. They're gonna last for lifetimes, which is so powerful. And it changes everything. So I hope you guys understand. I hope you got a ton of value from this module. Go out there, apply it, crush it. Thank you so much, and I will see you in the next one. Thanks.